Well, happy Friday and happy semi-sesquicentennial weekend coming up, Phil. Hope you're doing good.
Surviving the heat, David, just surviving the heat.
Yeah, me too. I was stuck out yesterday and it was 100 and I think it was about 100. I don't know if it quite hit 100. We hit 100 today, and right now I think the temp here, well, it got cool, 99 degrees.
There you go.
We dropped a little bit. The big news this week, of course, is our anniversary coming up tomorrow. I still remember of the Declaration of Independence. I still remember as a boy the bicentennial.
Yep.
I was very young. I don't have much memories of it, but I remember my brother telling me that we won't be here for the tricentennial. We won't make it for that. And I think he actually did use the word semi-sesquicentennial. I think he did try to teach me that word. But, well, it should be a good patriotic weekend. It'll be a hot one for sure. Also, I'd point out for history buffs that today, July 3rd, is a big day in American history. July 3rd, 1863, which was the final battle, the final day of Gettysburg, where it ended in disaster for Virginians, for the Pickett's men. Lee sent them on the charge straight into the fire. I don't know if you've ever you've been to Gettysburg, but what amazed me about the Pickett's charge, General Armistead made it so far. He started leading the soldiers, and they have a marker where he was killed. He went a long way. The one thing I'll say about that battle is that historians have done tests in terms of the amount of men and the firing being fought. And the theory is that a lot of the Virginians, a lot of the Confederates just ended up walking off the field as soon as they got to the Emmitsburg Road. They realized it was suicidal, and so they left. Yeah. But anyway, it should be a good weekend. And the other thing that went on this week, very big and noticeable, scary, but still we must take note of, and that is the rise of the socialists here in America, and not just in New York, but it spread in Colorado, for example. A far-left socialist won in Denver, Malat Quiros, who defeated a woman by the name of Diane DeGette, who herself was a far-left liberal. She was the head of what's known as the Progressive Caucus. And years ago, I did some work in Colorado for Right to Work, and I remember Diana DeGette, and I remember thinking, how could she get elected to Congress because she was so far left, but apparently not far enough left. Also, you had Michael Bennet, who ran for governor. He was the senator, supposed to be a moderate, well, not moderate, but more of the centrist Democrat. He lost to the attorney general was a whack job.
I wasn't surprised by any of that, particularly since it was Colorado. I can't figure out how Bennet has been able to last as long as he has. I mean, milquetoast Bennet.
Yeah.
He's about as inconsequential as any senator, currently serving. So I guess he realized he was so inconsequential in the Senate that he'd see if he could be inconsequential as a gubernatorial candidate, and the voters said, we don't want you there either. So
yeah,
no, it doesn't surprise me. It disappoints me, particularly that we're in our 250th anniversary and we're seeing the rise of socialism. I mean, look at the millions of individuals that have died in wars to preserve the freedoms, the liberties, the constitutional republic that our founding fathers established. And to think that, in the last 18 months, 24 months, you've seen this rise of socialism. And it speaks to where's our moral compass, where people just want to live off of others.
Yeah.
And that, confiscate their wealth and then distribute it to everybody. Well, eventually that wealth disappears and you have nothing to distribute. And then you'll have your little puppet masters, the oligarchs, that will be deciding everything for everybody all the time. And I don't know, is it a failure of our public school systems not to teach students the basic principles upon which this country was founded? And we have acknowledged in the preamble, we the people, in order to form a more perfect union. We never said it was perfect when we established it, and now 250 years later, we're still working on trying to make it a more perfect union. We have come a long ways, and it's like the socialists now want to cut our knees out from under us and say, well, we just believe in collectivism, and that's all it is. And collectivism will touch everybody but them.
Yeah.
You know, the puppet masters, the oligarchs. They'll have the air conditioning when the peasants, you and I, will have to live with open windows, high humidity, and 100-degree temperatures. And that's what it is. I mean, it's unfortunate, but that's the reality. And if voters don't wake up, I mean, even voters that are participating in the primaries, if they don't wake up, if they keep nominating socialists, that it will just be a matter of time before one of them gets elected. I would say we've already elected some of them. AOC, I think she's a socialist, if not worse. And but you get a significant number of them in there, and you know, maybe we end up with three parties. We end up with the Socialist Party, the Democratic Party that you and I know the Democratic Party to be, and then the Republican Party. And you know, then they hash it out in a three-way race, and that would be interesting because maybe nobody ever gets the 270 electoral votes they need to be president. It goes to the House of Representatives, where you could see all sorts of brokering going on, and who knows who would come out as the president in that kind of situation. So dangerous times, my friend, dangerous times.
Europe always had these social democrat parties, and that I think is what they're trying to do in America. But we don't have a parliamentary system, so it'll be a good bit tougher. But what they could do is take over one of the two major parties, which is what they're doing with the Democrats. And even if they don't totally succeed, the establishment Democrats will have to adopt some of their platforms, some of their policies, which, you know, include, it's like a Medicare for all, or things like on foreign policy in terms of the anti-Israel platform, or abolish the ICE and things like that. So it seems to me that they're either going to outright take over, or they'll gain enough influence to de facto take over.
Well, the Democratic Party is running scared. They're scared to death. And instead of proactively promoting something, they're trying to defend against something they can't stop. They created this monster, and now they don't know how to deal with it.
Yeah, no, that's true. And I've, you know, now it's spread beyond New York. I was young and I worked for Right to Work. I was in Colorado, and I remember Diana DeGette from Denver, and I thought she was so far whacked, so far to the left, that I found that hard to believe she got elected to Congress. Well, she's not far enough to the left, and they had to try to get rid of her. And they got rid of her with another AOC type. A woman from Ethiopia came to this country, hates America, blames America for 9/11, claiming that it was inevitable that you're going to have that. And yeah, so and wins. So it just shows you how far left the party's become.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I think at this point I said that I don't think a majority of Democrats are socialists, but I think a majority of Democrats will vote for a socialist if he's their nominee. And I told the story that here in Virginia, I remember we had our first Democratic Socialist elected, a guy by the name of Lee Carter, real weird dude. And he won in Manassas, Prince William. And I remember talking to a friend who was involved in politics there, and I said, how could they elect a socialist? And she said, well, because he's the Democratic nominee, and they're going to vote for whoever the Democrats nominate. And if that meant this guy is a socialist, or if it meant a yellow dog, that's who they would vote for. So, and in primaries, Democrats, socialists will have an outsized amount of influence because fewer people vote in the primaries. And so they can nominate a lot of people, and a lot of those people are going to win based on the district or the state. So I do think the problem they'll have is in the swing states. I think they can win the cities, but the swing states will be a lot tougher for them. And we'll get that test in Michigan if they nominate El-Sayed. To remind people, in Michigan, they're going to have a Senate primary. It looks like El-Sayed, Abdul El-Sayed, an Arab nationalist, sort of a socialist, is going to get the nomination. And if he does, we got Mike Rogers, who I think is a good candidate. I think we can beat El-Sayed. But that'll be the real test for the socialists because Michigan is a swing state. And while he could win Dearborn, he could win Detroit, but the rest of the state is not, I don't think, far left.
But the problem, David, is the rest of the state. They cannot be apathetic. They've got to get out and vote. If they don't vote, that is a vote for socialism. Because what typically happens is they don't vote, and then they moan and groan about, oh, well, in Virginia, people moan and groan about Abigail Spanberger. Well, I would agree she got elected by just over a third of the eligible voting population in Virginia. But she's in office, and she's in office because of voter apathy. And we saw how close or how much difference voter apathy or the lack of voter apathy makes in the referendum. No, at the polls we didn't win it, but we got within 3 points, which is a heck of a lot closer than what Winsome Sears got to Abigail Spanberger in the general election. People got motivated because they saw what was happening to them. Well, guess what? Anybody that gets elected to statewide office or gets elected as a mayor or chairman of a board of supervisors, it's the same thing. If you don't have the same intensity in voting in local elections and in legislative elections as you do in gubernatorial or presidential elections, then you're your own worst enemy. It's voter apathy, and we've just got to drive that message home. And I do know that there are better efforts now being made to turn out the vote, and they've gotten on board with turning out the early vote, so that instead of starting off 250,000 votes behind, we're at least cutting into that margin, and the people that like to vote on election day, which is the way I think it should be anyway, and maybe have a chance to overcome it. But if we maintain the voter apathy that exists in this country today, then I don't know that we'll see our tricentennial as the constitutional republic that was formed by the founding fathers. We may still be operating, but I don't think we'll be near reach the potential that constitutional republic form of government has. And people have just gotten lazy, and my vote doesn't count, and this, that, and the other. Well, if you get 100,000 people that says my vote doesn't count, guess what? It won't, because you just lost the election and handed it over to the socialist or worse.
Yeah. Well, I think one thing I got to hand it to Mamdani is that when he got elected in New York, I said I think he'll have some national influence. I think he's got a lot of national influence now. A good example today, before we came on, they asked him about the 250th anniversary, and they're going to him now. The press is going to him now. And in many ways, he's speaking for the party. So he's got as much influence, and I said this last week after the New York races, I think he's got as much influence in the party as anybody. More so than Obama, more so than Biden. The other day, I think it was Kamala Harris was reaching out, if not to Mamdani, but some of his supporters.
No, she reached out to him.
Okay.
And I think he actually called him.
Yeah.
Which tells you how scared they are. I mean, she's reaching out to a socialist. Gavin Newsom has become a socialist overnight. He's now adopting all their socialist policies because he's running scared as well. I don't know. It's a disturbing pattern. Whether the Republican Party has the backbone to resist it as strongly as it needs to, I don't know. I would hope that they would, but again, David, if people don't wake up, I mean, we are a government that is governed by the consent of the governed. That means the people. Lincoln said, we're of the people, by the people, and for the people. I mean, everything that serves as the undergirding for our form of democracy rests with the people. And if the people get so disenchanted that they just throw up their hands and say, well, the heck with it, we can't do anything, you're absolutely right. You take that attitude, you can't do anything. And you'll lose, and you'll lose, and you'll lose. And the evil forces will gain and gain and gain. And before you know it, you'll be looking at yourself in the mirror and say, what happened? Well, what happened was some people took elections serious, and they figured out you don't have to have massive numbers. If your voter turnout is 35, 40%, and then you're talking about, okay, well, if it's 35%, I'll win 20% of the eligible voters. Bingo, you've won in a landslide. And that's what Spanberger did. Spanberger got 35% of the eligible voters in Virginia, and she won by 15 percentage points. Go figure,
The lady that asked Ben Franklin, what did you create? And he said, a republic if you can keep it.
That's right.
And we're hanging in there, and 250 great years we've had, so hopefully it'll be another 250 more. But you got the socialists on the rise, and part of it also, I think, is a bad educational system, maybe, and also, the left they took control of the opinion-making thing, such as the media, such as the culture, such as academia. And so that gave them a good leg up, in some ways the high ground in that. But I'm still optimistic, and I think the socialists will hit the wall as soon as they start leaving the cities. I think it'll be a lot tougher in the suburbs. I think people that go to the suburbs are looking to get ahead. They're not looking to live off anyone else. They want to get ahead for themselves and their families. And that's why the suburbs are going to be different than the cities. And the cities, as I mentioned in my column, is full of a lot of downwardly mobile people. I mean, a lot of education, overeducated, really. Maybe socialism can work on them, but with working people, I don't think so. And in the suburbs, I don't think it will. Are you surprised, though, that with the Democrats, you haven't had any really pushback among? And when I say Democrats, it's not a matter that they're moderate Democrats. I'm just saying traditional liberals.
Yeah.
Who've never believed in socialism.
David, I'm not surprised at all, because for even the moderate Democrats, whoever that single individual might be, maybe it's John Fetterman, I don't know. One person can't do it by himself, but I think they are so power hungry. They don't care. I mean, they've allowed their whole nomination process to be taken over by socialists who basically use the Democratic Party to get into these primaries and this, that, and the other. And they're not Democrats. They're socialist. And the Democrat Party, so blinded by being out of power, they would do anything to get power. And now they're starting to realize, by God, what have we done? We've literally opened the door to the hen house, to the fox. And not just one fox, we've invited the whole herd of fox to come in. And then they're acting surprised, and you've got, every once in a while you'll hear one of them say, well, I'm a Democrat. Well, no, you're not. You've absconded. You gave away your right to call yourself a Democrat in the traditional sense of the word when you didn't have the backbone to stand up. Because these people aren't going down fighting. It's almost as if they've accepted the reality that when they run it against the socialists, they're going to lose. Well, why have they waved the white flag of surrender? It's a reality. And how is it that people on the outside looking at them can find it, and they can't find it? Because they are blinded by absolute power, and that's all that matters to them.
Well, and the thing is, Diana DeGette losing in Colorado ought to be the canary in the coal mine in this, that you wouldn't think anyone could get to her left, but someone did. And that's always going to be able to happen. They're always going to find another one who's going to be further to the left than this traditional Democrat or this old Democrat. And that's why Schumer's in trouble and Jeffries is in trouble, because they're going to want one of their own. They're going to want a Democratic socialist to run against them. So if you're a Democrat and you still don't want to call yourself a socialist, you're going to be vulnerable.
Yeah.
Because they're going to go find one of their own to beat you. So, that's why they're not riding this. And, remember in France, the left took over. It was called the French Revolution. And Robespierre didn't think anyone could get to his left. Well, they did.
Yeah.
And he ended up losing his head. So, and the same thing with the Bolshevik Revolution. You had the moderate socialist commies, but others just moved to their left and then marginalized them. So, It'll get to the point that, and even AOC has taken criticism for not being pure enough or not being far enough to the left, because she didn't endorse that woman in Denver. She endorsed DeGette, I believe. Now, I noticed that AOC has now endorsed El Said in Michigan. If Democrats fail to take the Senate, there may be a little bit of a backlash. You and I remember, Bill Clinton moving the party to the center so they can start winning again. Because remember, they lost in my lifetime, they lost 3 straight presidential elections. And then they got Bill Clinton, they tried to move back to the center. I think for Democrats, they're not ready to move to the center yet, but who knows if they lose another couple elections, then maybe socialism will crash out then. I do think though that Republicans have a great opportunity now because of the rise of the socialists by pointing to them. And I think that could help Republicans keep the Senate, certainly. In the case of, you got Plattner in Maine, who I think may end up losing because he's too far to the left. Michigan, they may end up losing as well. This could work out well for Republicans if Republicans focus on the socialists and the radicalism of the Democrats.
Let's hope so.
Yeah, I'm going to try to nationalize the election. In fact, in my column, I said that every Republican running for office should have 8 opponents. 1, the person they're running against in their district or state, and then the 7 socialists that are running. Point them out as well.
Yeah.
Well, in Virginia, here we got to hit on some Virginia news. 2 cases now the Department of Justice is suing Virginia over. The General Assembly passed a law to stop ICE agents from wearing masks. There's an injunction on that. There's a block on that. They have no power. The Virginia General Assembly has no power to say what federal agents should be wearing or can wear in the state. So that's not going anywhere. So and then they knew it. And when they passed, they knew it wasn't constitutional or legal. And secondly, the gun ban. Virginia General Assembly voted to ban most semi-automatic rifles, and that's now being challenged. The AR-15, for example, is one of the most popular rifles, which is they're trying to ban. Both those cases, I think we can win. Certainly the mask case, there's no way that's going to hold up.
I mean, I think the Department of Justice is going to prevail in both of those cases.
Yeah, I think so.
Most of that gun legislation has not been upheld in other states that have tried it before. And let's just remember, I mean, Virginia tried to get people to vote for an unconstitutional amendment and got them to do it.
Yeah.
But a 7th grader could have looked at the Constitution and looked at that language in the budget. I mean, the constitutional amendment said they can't do this, but they tried, and fortunately, the Virginia Supreme Court struck it down. And of course, they wanted to appeal it up to the federal level, and you had the Attorney General that couldn't spell the word Senate, and he couldn't spell the word Virginia. And I think that the justices of the Supreme Court took note of that and dismissed it without so much as a blink of the eye. It was like, this is bizarre. I think there's an example where all they are worried about is power. And finally, and we talked about this a lot, how concerned we were as to whether the Supreme Court of Virginia would stand up to them. We felt pretty confident that if it ever got to the Supreme Court of the United States, that sanity would prevail. But to have the Virginia Supreme Court nip it in the bud so decisively with their opinion and their decision made it real easy for the U.S. Supreme Court to say, no, we're not even going to waste our time to read past the misspellings.
Yeah, no, that's true. I think in the case of both those cases, I think will be shot down ultimately. But it shows the sort of the partisanship of the General Assembly to even pass something that they had to have known is not going anywhere. And on one hand, they ran on affordability. We want to make things more affordable for people. But yet, they use taxpayers' money to push these cases, which they know are unconstitutional. So they know they're going to waste taxpayers' money. How's everything going also in Newport News in your campaign?
Well, I think things are going well, David. I mean, my opponent's got $450,000, and I think I've got about $6,000. And I feel so positive because I'm getting out meeting people. And the common theme that comes out is that people do not feel that they are respected by the elected leaders. They feel that they have been ignored. They're forgotten. We don't need to tell the people what we're doing until after we've done it to them. And it is a tremendous lack of transparency. There's absolutely zero accountability for some of the decisions that are being made. So from my perspective, the accountability will have to come at the ballot box. And we'll see. I mean, I'm sensing a lot of angst in the general public, cuts across all socioeconomic, platforms, and it's from one end of the city to the other end of the city. We're a long city of 22 miles, 2 miles wide. and there's a lot of complaints, but those are nothing but idle complaints until people go out and vote. And I get back to this thing on apathy. Hey, if you don't vote, then that's an endorsement of what's been going on in local government in Newport News, Virginia. If you're happy with it, okay, that's fine. I just haven't found that groundswell of support or happiness. I think people realize they're being taken for a ride. And it was, the premier event that signaled that was when, unbeknownst to the general public, now maybe some of the, oligarchs' friends and everything knew about it, but the general public didn't know until it was a done deal and council had appropriated $3 million plus of the FY25 surplus for a music festival. It was a flop. But I don't care how they define it. It was a flop. It started out as 30 to 40,000 people. The police and fire department said no more than 8,000 people. They claimed that they had 4,000 or 5,000 people collectively over 2 days. Well, I'll believe that when I start seeing pigs flying over my house. I was down there and saw about 200. The newspaper reported 350 on one day and maybe 400, 500 on the next day. You add all those numbers together, you don't get to 1,000. I'm sorry. It was a flop. And it cost the taxpayers $3 million in surplus funds, and we've got issues that need to be addressed in the core service areas. Our school system touts its 97% graduation rate. What they don't tout is reading proficiency of those graduates. I mean, I wonder if the graduates could actually read the diplomas they were handed. It's almost become like a diploma mill. And there's other things. They tout how much crime has gone down. But they don't want to talk about the 5 murders that occurred in February within an 11-day period. Well, that was right after they announced, we've had this great reduction in crime. Well, I'm sorry. And they don't talk about anything but homicides. Well, there's a lot of other crimes that are taking place that they just want to basically ignore. They don't want to talk about it. So, I'm having fun. I am enjoying going out and meeting people, small business people, and non-governmental agencies that are doing so much for our community with so little financial support from city council. It's really amazing that if we didn't have them, I don't know what kind of mess we'd be in. But, it'll be what it'll be. And people have asked me, they said, well, what happens if you lose? I'll play more golf. I mean, it's as simple as that. It's the world will go on, the sun will still come up, and Phil Hamilton will still be looking for a tee time. But we have a lack of leadership. We have a tremendous lack of leadership in the city of Newport News. And look, you talk about socialists. We're seeing a purge of highly qualified city employees that have been with the city for years and years and years that are either encouraged to take retirement or being forced out. And unfortunately, we're getting all these people coming in that are from the city of Richmond. Well, the city of Richmond is not the city that I would like to emulate as a beacon of great success. So it's frustrating from that standpoint that we're in the position we're in, but I am encouraged by the number of folks. I mean, last Saturday, I went to a yard sale. I was invited by a friend to just come to the yard sale, not to buy anything, not to look at what was being sold, but just to interact with people that came.
Yeah.
There were a lot of people from other localities, but I interacted with them as well. And to some of them even said, well, geez, I might want to move back to Newport News with the type of things you're talking about. So we'll see what happens. Thank you for asking, David. I appreciate it. And, my attitude is you can't win if you don't run. I tell people I'm in it to win it. And we'll see what happens.
Well, I talked to one of our subscribers the other day. I asked about your campaign. He's here in Prince William County, but he was asking about your campaigns. I'll forward your address so he can make a contribution.
Or if he's got questions. I mean, my Facebook page, Philip Hamilton for mayor. I mean, I get a lot of inquiries, and I respond. Nobody else is responding to my Facebook page but me.
Okay.
The good, bad, and the ugly, and whether they like my response or not, it's from the heart. I'm being as authentic and genuine as I can be, and quite frankly, the response has been pretty overwhelmingly positive. I've gotten probably 4 or 5 requests. I got a few of my yard signs yesterday.
Yeah, I saw.
I've got 4 or 5 requests today Well, where can I pick them up? Or da, 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 da. Well, I delivered one on my way home from doing something else today. I happened to have them in the back of my car, opened the box, took them out, and it just so happened the lady was pulling up to her house as I was pulling up to her house. Oh, you would have thought Christmas had arrived for a Phil Hamilton for Mayor yard sign, but she was happy as she could be. She put it together, stuck it right in the corner of her yard, right on the curb. So hopefully the city won't come by and take it down. You never know what's going to happen around here.
You know, Jackson Miller, who ran,
Yeah.
he's a former delegate, he ran for office in Manassas, and I had told Jackson, yeah, you can put a sign in my yard. And he himself came to deliver it.
Yeah.
The ex, the second wife of that is now an ex, she was a Democrat. So Jackson came, and Jackson's putting the sign up in the yard, and she was fine with it. She said, okay, but I had forgotten to tell her that it was Jackson Miller himself who came to plant the sign.
You know, Jackson was a good guy. So he was in the legislature when I was there, and he was a stand-up fellow. Manassas lost a good representative when Jackson Miller was no longer in the legislature.
I agree. No, I like Jackson a lot. Well, while we shift back to our anniversary, there's reasons also to be patriotic. The World Cup, the United States beat Bosnia, I believe. So
Yeah.
the United States is 2-0, and soon we'll have to play. Is it Belgium? I think Belgium is next up. I gotta say, I think this has been a great thing, and I'm not a soccer fan.
I'm not either.
In terms of advertisement for the United States, I mean, this has got to be the biggest event in the world, wouldn't you say? Even
Yes, it
probably more so than the Olympics.
Yeah, oh yeah.
Yeah, it's been great for the country, so this has been excellent for us, and I'm sure it'll get more people into soccer here in the United States, but this is being talked about worldwide, so I think that's going great.
You know what's crazy, David, is the biggest ambassadors for the United States of America have been the foreigners who have come to the United States of America to watch the World Cup.
Yeah.
I mean, I've seen interview after interview, and these foreigners are just like, this is nothing like what we've been told by our media back home. This is great. The people are so nice. And that, I mean, they even selected New York City as having the nicest people. Now, I mean, there's nothing against New York City, but they're not the nicest people. Now, they could be rough and gruff and tell you where to go in a heartbeat. But it's a great advertisement. And I think it has shocked the world media that all of these people are talking so glowingly about the United States of America. And we've got people in Congress constantly, the drumbeat of trashing America, trashing America, trashing America. These people are coming from countries that America wants to become. And they don't understand it. Said, why in the world would you want to be what we just left to come over here for 2 weeks to watch soccer? They don't understand. Look, if you're calling Costco and Walmart museums because they have so much stuff in them, then it tells you the countries that they left, how bad off they are in so many different areas. And a lot of it has been food, but it also has been just the general hospitality of Americans.
Well, and that was the thing with Boris Yeltsin when he came. Soviet Union was on its last legs. He came to the United States for a tour, and for him, you know what was the shocking thing? The grocery stores.
Yeah.
He'd go into a grocery store, and he was like, oh, my God, look at this. And it's funny. We have now the leaders of the Democratic Party. They want to nationalize. They want government-run grocery stores.
Yeah.
They should have talked. I mean, Boris Yeltsin, who's no longer here, he could have talked him out of it. He could have said, that's a bad idea. But, you know, the other thing is that I just thought of, we talk about foreigners coming here and seeing how great America is and all, and that's great. But, you know, some of the leaders, in fact, and I won't start listing them all, but so many of the leaders now of today's Democratic Party are socialists, but also foreign-born.
Yeah.
Because you have Mdami from Uganda. You've got Malat Kiros now from Ethiopia, who's going to be in Congress.
Ilhan Omar.
Yeah, you're right. And then in Virginia, we got a gun ban now because of a guy from Bangladesh, Saddam Salim. He came here and decided he didn't like the notion of us having a Second Amendment or guns. So he'll come to the country and try to change America. So but anyway, I just thought that's interesting.
It is.
Something to look into. Yeah, so many are foreign-born. What happened to the traditional liberal Democrat? Where have you gone? I grew up with Democrats who were to the left, but They literally believed in a certain amount of freedom and
Yeah.
rights and stuff. So yeah, that's weird. So that's an ongoing story to watch. I will say this in terms of winners and losers. I've already sort of said who I thought were the winners of the week, regrettably, and that is the socialists because they're on the march to take over the Democratic Party. But let me start with, well, first off, do you have a winner of the week? I'm sorry.
I do. And my winner of the week is tied into this weekend. I mean, I think it's the United States of America that we have it existed for 250 years. And I really do think that we are a shining beacon on the hill. Not perfect, but we're better than any place else. And so in the spirit of celebration for the 250th anniversary, I've decided that the United States of America and the people that believe in the United States of America are the winners of the week for me.
I agree. You know, it's like Cecil Rhodes used to say this back in the early 1900s, that if you're a British citizen, you sort of won the lottery. But I feel the same thing if you're an American citizen, you sort of won the lottery in life. So we're very lucky to be here. And that's why it's very discouraging when you have people who come to the country that decide they hate America and they want to try to make changes for the worse.
Well, you know, you spoke of that, but a lot of the people from the UK don't believe what they're seeing when they come here. It's like, well, this is not what we were told. So as great as the UK might have thought it was in 1900, it doesn't even, if it looks itself in the mirror, it doesn't even see the 1900s anymore. I think they have regressed so much as a society, and it become, you know, overrun by people that don't believe in the principles of the Magna Carta.
Yeah, and plus the economics, the command and control of the welfare state. There's a running thing that has happened to Canada and then in the UK, and that is this belief that there's some statistics showing that if the United Kingdom were a state, they actually would have a lower per capita income than Mississippi. And it's interesting that it made it a story on BBC, and they talk about this because they look down at the United States, they look down on Mississippi. But then they realize, oh my God, we're poorer than Mississippi.
And Mississippi is becoming one of our leaders in public education because they're getting back to the basics of helping these children be able to read, write, and compute. And so their test scores, percentage-wise, are rapidly improving, while everybody else is, on a good day, is staying stagnant. And a lot of them are just losing ground.
Yeah, Mississippi's a wonderful state. I'm just saying that they always kind of look down on a state like Mississippi. And then there was a debate in Canada, in the Canadian House of Commons. They also mentioned the same study showing that they would be below Mississippi. And I remember they made a big issue of that to attack the government, to say, you know. Well, my loser of the week happens to be Nina Totenberg. Nina Totenberg's a reporter with NPR. She's 82 years old. She's been covering the Supreme Court since I was a kid. And she ran with a story that Samuel Alito was going to retire from the Supreme Court. And I was in the middle of something, and I was watching a podcast, and they made the breaking news. But it was quickly retracted by NPR. And it was the weirdest reason. I don't even understand her excuse for making this error. She had overheard a conversation among the justices. She heard the word retirement or something, or a retirement announcement, and then she ran with it. There was no follow-up. You think you would ask the justice, is this true? Or the justice's office. She didn't do that, and they ran with the story. So a weird mistake for such a veteran reporter. I was never a fan of Nina Totenberg's. She was always, her bias always came through in reporting. She was not liked by, years ago I read a book by Alan Simpson, the late senator from Wyoming, and he didn't like her at all. And in his book, he was pretty rough on Nina Totenberg.
But he was such an easygoing person. So for Alan Simpson to come out that strongly against her tells you. I mean, he was looking at a two-headed demon.
Yeah, that's true. Well, you know, it's interesting. When I came up following politics, the two big reporters of the Supreme Court were Linda Greenhouse of New York Times, a liberal, and Nina Totenberg of NPR, liberal. But those were two of the big reporters. And Totenberg was very good friends, apparently, with Ruth Bader Ginsburg. And some people thought that was I don't know, maybe a little odd, someone covering the Supreme Court who was so close to one of the justices. But I don't get a sense of that she's a nice person. There's nothing wrong with being a liberal. If you would like to like that, that's fine. But I didn't get the sense that she's a particularly nice person. So, but she'd be my loser of the week. Do you have a loser of the week?
Yeah, and it's kind of a mixed bag. My loser of the week is just the United States Senate, which touts itself as the most deliberative body in the world. They don't deliberate on anything. It's cut and dried. It's partisan this, partisan that. There's not an open and honest discussion based on anybody's principles. It's just, we're not going to do this because we don't like the president. And it's happened on both sides. And it's unfortunate that you would like to think that let those kind of things play itself out in the House. You know, that's the people's house. I mean, have those little skirmishes and whatnot. But when it gets to the Senate, you would like to think that we have elected individuals, regardless of party, that are willing to sit down, have a conversation, and try to find some common ground. And let, you know, I'll just use this Save America Act. And let's say there are 10 things in it. I don't know how many different, things are in it. But let's say that there's general consensus on 5 of the things. And there's, it's a mixed bag on the other 5. By golly, why can't you pass the 5 that there's general consensus on, and then let's work on trying to build a consensus and compromise this and the other to get the other 5 done? And I guess that's what just frustrates me. And I know that I don't want to get rid of the filibuster. I'd like to think that the filibuster would be what brought people together. Yeah. But now it's being used as the bludgeon to make sure that nothing passes under this president or that president, regardless of party. And I guess maybe I'm just idealistic, and I'm living in fantasy world that people that are elected to something as austere as the United States Senate would actually sit down and have a conversation with each other. And that doesn't mean anybody has to compromise their principles, but by golly, I think if you had that open, honest discussion, you'd find some things you could agree on. And the starving man doesn't have to have a full loaf. The starving man just needs to have one slice of bread at a time. And so let's start putting the slices of bread together to make the loaf. And if that takes 1 year, 2 years, 5 years, whatever, start showing some leadership and some real concern for this country. And no matter what the issue is. And if you come to the point where you're just not going to be able to reach agreement, then just say we're not going to be able to reach agreement, period, and be done with it. I think that's unfortunate that we've gotten to that point, particularly since they self-proclaim themselves to be the most deliberative body in the world. They don't deliberate on squat, which is not the word I wanted to use, but squat is the only one I feel appropriate to use.
Well, the thing is, I understand the reason behind the filibuster. I'm generally in favor of the filibuster. I do think if Democrats take over, they'll get rid of it. The reason we have a filibuster is you've already got a majority rule in the House. The thought was in the Senate, they can help make things bipartisan by having a filibuster rule. So you have to get the minority to buy in to some degree. I still think in principle, the filibuster is good.
Yeah.
But a couple things. It makes it very difficult when we're so partisan, so split. The filibuster can work if you've got, 5 to 10 members that work together. You don't really have that now. But I'll say this. I think the Republicans will hold on to the filibuster, even though they probably know Democrats will get rid of it, simply because they don't want to be the ones that killed it.
I agree.
I think Republicans believe that this is important enough that, Democrats will kill it. Let's let them do it, and we shouldn't do it. Agree or not, I think that's their, whether that's wise or not, I think that's their thinking.
Because, and that's why elections are important. All right, let's say the Democrats do get rid of the filibuster. They don't get anything passed through a Republican president.
Right.
The president can sit there and lay out, I'm vetoing this because of A, B, C, D, and E. And there's the protection. You've got to have a 2/3 vote to overturn the veto. And like you're saying, with the margins being as close as they are, that's just not going to happen. I'm like you, though, David. if someone's gonna do away with it, let it be the Democrats, and then beat them over the head with it. That is the ultimate sign that you have no ability or willingness to compromise on anything. And then you got to make sure you got a president that's got the backbone to stand up to it and veto it.
Well, it's interesting times we live in. It's just we've got to do what we can to keep Democrats out of power, but eventually, they're probably going to get back into power, and if they become a socialist party. And I just don't think, I think there are some reasonable moderate Democrats out there. I don't know any, but I think there probably are, but they're kind of quiet, and they're going along, and they're intimidated. And again, remember, sure, the majority of Democrats aren't socialists, but the majority of Democrats will vote for a socialist. So if they nominate them, that's what they're going to become. And in effect, they will become a socialist party then. Even if the majority of Democrats don't believe in socialism, if they're willing to vote for the socialist, then it's going to become a socialist party. You know who I almost was going to make a loser of the week? Larry Sabato. Larry Sabato apparently commented that it was no big deal because there aren't that many elected socialists now or nominated socialists. But you know what? He's wrong. The fact that you're going to have 7 or 8 socialists, at least, next Congress, that is a lot because it's supposed to be the Democratic Party. And if you've got 8 members that are for socialism in your party, that actually is significant. And consider that even if Democrats take over Congress, it's only going to be by a handful of seats.
Right.
So your 7 or 8 socialists will have a lot of power. They'll have a lot of influence.
Yeah. Well, Larry Sabato demonstrated his arrogance, his dismissiveness by saying, "Oh, well, it's no big deal." I'm like you. You let one fox in the hen house, my friend, he can wipe out the whole bunch. But if the fox is smart enough to open the door a little bit wider and get a bunch of fox in there, then you rule the roost.
Yeah, that's right.
And, that's just a very elitist and a very dismissive attitude. And I don't think it's grounded in a whole lot of reality. You keep looking around, before you know it, you're going to be saying, "Oh, what happened?" Well, you're what happened by promoting that garbage that it's not that big a deal. We said the same thing about AOC. Now look. Said the same thing about Mamdani. Now look. And they're picking up these nominations. And again, it gets back to will common sense Americans go to the polls and say enough is enough? I've got to see it. I've got to see it before I'm going to believe it. And I'm not going to believe it with the 50% voter turnout and everybody claiming what a great turnout it was. That's if you get an F if you get a 50% in school, you failed.
Yeah. Well, Larry Sabato is the definition of elitist. He's also the definition of a guy who's in the ivory tower. I remember he has his crystal ball, his forecasting. Yeah. Even after Biden's disastrous debate in June of 24, Sabato still listed the race for president as a toss-up. Well, there's nobody and everybody in America knew, no, Biden's going to lose if he's the nominee. Not Larry Sabato. Larry Sabato was still like, yeah, looks like this is going to be too close to call. And so, I was never, ever a fan. And I grew up in Virginia and followed Virginia politics. And I will say this, over the last 40 years, I don't think Larry Sabato's ever had an original thought in his life. Now, maybe I'm wrong, but I don't think an original thought ever crossed that guy's mind. Well, we got to end on a positive note. Why am I ending the show on that note? Yeah, you never want to end any thought on Larry Sabato. So something positive. Well, it should be a good 4th. I'm looking forward to it. And another birthday for the country. It's been a good 250 years, really.
It has. And I think it is worth celebrating. And thank goodness we've got the FIFA World Cup. Because I think that has done more to bring people together.
Yeah.
Republicans, Democrats, whatever. Because they're cheering. Yes, they're cheering for the American soccer team. But the American soccer team is representative of the United States of America. And so I think that is worth celebrating. I'm proud to say I'm here for the 250th. And like you, David, I'm not so sure I'll be around here for the 300th. But by golly, I look at it now that I have been on this earth at least 74 of the 250 years. And so if you add that up, that's about, 25% of the time this country's been around. So it's, I'm just proud to say that I've been an American and am strongly an American and believe in America. I just want America to wake up.
I think it's been a great time that I've been alive, and I grew up, I think, and I'm biased, but if anyone knows me would know me to say this. I thought the 80s was the greatest decade in American history, so I was lucky to live through that. And we survived Joe Biden, we survived Jimmy Carter, survived Barack Hussein Obama, and
Woodrow Wilson. We survived Woodrow Wilson.
Yeah. Woodrow Wilson was one of the worst American presidents, absolutely. Carter, I think, was horrible, but his heart was in the right place. He wasn't anti-American saying. Biden was probably the worst because he had a real problem on the border and he just couldn't do anything. He's just sort of just turned his head. But anyway, all right. Well, that sounds good. I'll try to get up a couple more columns this week. Check out my Substack. I've got a couple up now from this week. We look forward to seeing everybody next Friday. Phil, have a good weekend. Stay cool, everybody.
We'll try. Thank you.
All right. See you next week, everybody. Have a happy 4th.